Hello lovely people, today is going to be probably the last video about the Honda Jazz project, and in this one we're going to go through the tuning session that I had yesterday. So in this video, as I mentioned, we're going to go through some measurements, and then I'm going to show you how I tune the whole system. There's quite a lot. However, if you remember, this Honda had some different drivers before and in different locations. So first we're going to have a look at the old versus new, because I have all the measurements from the previous tuning session when he had the subwoofer in a small sealed enclosure, factory mid bass, and the widebands, the hybrid audio widebands in small pods in the corners of the dash. So let's start with the subwoofer. This is the old subwoofer response, and from this we have a massive peak at 50 Hertz. This is very typical of a small sealed enclosure and not really much of the very low end. When we put this exactly the same subwoofer in a bigger enclosure, we got this. So you can see that there's a little peak here. However, the extension is massive. Like at 30 Hertz we gained 5 dB, and it's not flatter, but we have much more extension and the subwoofer became much more efficient. However, the top end, you can see it's exactly the same. This is just due to measurement. And here at 80 Hertz, it's a typical cancellation. So you can see that the cancellation slightly moved from like 85 down to 78, 79, because the subwoofer is at a slightly different location, a bit more further back. But the main thing is we gained much more of the low end. Low extension is very good. Now let's have a look at the mid bass. Left mid bass, the passenger side old. You can see it's kind of plays all the way up. There is a cancellation, there's something happening here. However, down to 50 and then rolls off. When you put the new Morel mid-bass drivers, we deadened the door, we put decoupler and everything, properly done the doors, changed the mounting as well. We have something like this. You can see it doesn't play any lower, so it is what it is, and the response is very similar. And this is the main thing. It doesn't change the response that much, but it changes the actual feel, how it sounds, because now the mid bass is much how should I put it, it sounds better, it's more impactful and kind of a punchier compared to the previous factory speakers. However, we did get quite a lot of gain at about like 130 Hertz, so this is a massive gain. Then we lost quite a lot in this area. I don't know why, but we lost quite a lot of energy, and these Morels, they do roll off quite fast, and like above 6K there's literally nothing. However, the factory ones with because the factory ones were kind of full range drivers, they played all the way up to 13K. So this is the biggest difference. That's the left one, the passenger side. The right one is the driver's side. From the driver's side we had this null, and it was kind of good response for the factory speakers, and roll down, and we had this. With the new ones we have something like this. So it's extremely similar. We do get a little bit more response between like 110 and like 360, this a little bit, but the low end roll off is exactly the same, the dip is exactly the same, and everything is kind of the same. It's just a top end extension. You can see these Morels play up to 6K, same like last side, and the factory ones play much higher, but the response is very similar. And this is the point where changing the speakers doesn't change the response that much, because you cannot say that this is radically different response. It's similar. The biggest difference, however, is the mid-ranges. So if you remember, the old ones were hybrid audio, a Legato L3 SE, in small little pods in the corners of the dash. So the L4 range, and they played all the way with dropping level because they were a bit off axis. However, this peak at like 400 was due to the drivers being in the small pods. You will always gonna have this. And the new ones were the dome mid-range. So this is, I believe, with like 200 hertz crossover, and the mid-ranges, the dome mid-range morels, they were crossed at 500 because they don't play that high. And the response, we can see that it's much nicer, it's less stuff happening. So if you see this dip, peak dip, this is a very, very jaggedy response. And with the domes, the response is much nicer, with much smaller dips and peaks. The only dip we have is this. And you can see we had this dip on the hybrid audios as well, just in a slightly higher frequency, because these were more in the corner and closer to the glass. And these were pulled a little bit further from the glass, so the distance between the windshield kind of shifted this cancellation. So with the hybrid audios, we had the cancellation in a slightly higher frequency, 800, and when we pulled the drivers a bit closer to the driver with these pods, the cancellation shifted into a different frequency. But the top end is very similar. The main difference is that the wide bands play all the way up to 18K, and these, the dome ranges, they kind of do this. So this is only with 500 hertz crossover, and the top end was no filter applied, so they just don't play low. That's the left side. And the right one is, these are the hybrid audios on the right. They were more on axis, and again, they play all the way up. This peak, again, due to them being in the small pods, and the dome mid-ranges are this. Very similar, and again, a slightly less jaggedy response. You can see like this dip, this kind of almost cancellation. So the dome mid-ranges have a much nicer response with no major peaks and dips. However, they have this kind of a shape where they roll off quite fast at the bottom end and at the top end. So this is the main difference. I didn't put here the tweeters because why should I? So now we're gonna go through the actual tuning session. Let's have a look. These are the tweeters, left and right, the morels. So obviously different level because different distance to us, to the listener. This is with a 3000 hertz crossover, or 3.2K. I put 3.2K because the mid-ranges, mid, left and right, see, they overlap quite a lot because the mid-ranges play all the way up to like 10K, so they are overlapping quite a lot. So I could cross them even higher than that, but what's the point really? So I chose a crossover about 3000 hertz, just somewhere here, and it is a very safe crossover for those tweeters, because these tweeters, I test them, they could play down to 2.5K, but 3K, yeah, it's a nice crossover. And they didn't need a lot of work, to be honest, because the response is very nice. So this is with a crossover, and this is just EQ. So just tidy up a bit and remove this peak, and that's pretty much it. They play very nice, need very little EQ. I think it was 6 or 7 bands of EQ. And then the right one from this, again, very nicely. Obviously the level was reduced as well, so this is just EQ and level reduced, but again, just this peak to remove it. And I have left and right matching perfectly, and I had to pull them up a little bit later with the gains because it was not enough. So these are the tweeters across the 3K. I chose the crossovers at, where is it? 3K, 500, 3K, 500, and 80. I chose this based on the tweeter because I wanted to have the tweeter safe, and the mid-range were kind of set. I couldn't cross the mid-ranges lower, so based on my distortion measurements, the mid-ranges cannot play below 500. So this was kind of hard crossovers that I couldn't really play with them. And the mid-bass, I just crossed them at 80 because it's typical for 6.5s. They don't play that low anyway, and the subwoofer reaches them anyway, so it was good crossovers. Now let's have a look at the mid-ranges. So this is the left mid-range, and you can see that according to the target, it does reach the target here. This is a massive dip, which is the cancellation due to reflection from the glass. And the top end is very nice. It just needed some crossovers. So I applied the crossover on the top end just to remove this. And this is the response only after the crossovers. You can see it's not bad. It's nice. The only thing is this one. So I did manage to boost it. It did respond to a boost, and boosting at like 600 hertz, it's not that bad because it's not, there's barely any excursion there. And after EQ, I ended up something this. So just tidy up a little bit here, and this little boost here, it kind of matches the target, which is very, very nice to see. So that's the left one. Right one had less problems, much less problems. So apply the crossover on top end just to chop it off like that to match on the target, and then just to reduce the level a bit like this. So I could have chosen a slightly higher target curve with this response, the light blue. However, I was kind of limited with the bottom end response, like here, because if I would choose the higher, I would lose like from here all the way there. So, and anyway, the limited part was the left mid-range anyway. So left and right after EQ, they match very, very, very nice. Now, the mid-bass drivers. This is where's the response, left bass. Yeah, you can see doors are problematic anyway. It's just typical for the doors. You cannot do much with them. So there had to be some kind of a compromise. So my compromise was, so this is crossed at 80, and then I crossed at the top end as well, just to remove that. And my compromise was to choose a very low target curve. So I chose a very low target, and then what I did, I increased the gains of the amplifier just to boost that, because if I would choose a target level, something like this, I could it could do with the top end. However, the bottom end, basically from like 80, it would be nothing here. So that's why I wanted a good integration between the mid bass and the subwoofer. That's why I chose a slightly lower target curve, but the overall volume was plenty enough. So this, after EQ, again, using a lot of level, like 10 dB. And this area, however, ended up with literally no dips. And then I increased it with a gain on the amplifier, plus 5 dB, and it was matching the target. Very, very nice. This is just, it's fine, these little squigglies, but the response follows down to 50 hertz or so, and it's perfect. Now the right bass, which was much worse. So you can see this, again, I had to choose a lower target because of that. There is a cancellation here, and there's this. So one thing, funny thing I'm gonna show you. The right bass was this. I applied crossover just to remove the top end, just like that. And then it was like this. Again, I sacrificed 10 dB of level here just because I needed this extension at the bottom end. Because I want a good integration between the subwoofer and the mid bass. Otherwise, it would be just no bass. We had quite a lot of headroom with gain with amplifier, because with all these cuts in the DSP, it was like the whole response was like minus 5 dB or something on the EQ, which was perfect. And then I increased the gain and I ended up with this. So this is typical door cancellation. However, with this, where is it? This one, you don't really see it. And this is because while I was taking these measurements, the owner of the car was sitting next to me in the passenger seat. And what he did by sitting in the car, he kind of minimized that cancellation by absorbing the sound wave. Basically, his body sitting in the seat absorbed that sound wave, and it didn't bounce back from the opposite side. And when we increased the gain, he was not in the car and the cancellation appeared. So it's the same, like if you open the door on this side, on the passenger side, this cancellation disappears. But yeah, funny thing how I found it. So left and right after the gain increase, we ended up with this and this massive dip, which is a typical door cancellation. You cannot do pretty much anything with it. And let's have a look at the subwoofer. So this is the subwoofer target, subwoofer raw response. with nothing. I chose the target so it would touch the response in the cancellation area, because if I would choose a higher target, this area would need boosting, otherwise you would have quite poor summing with the mid bass. And it kind of maxes out at about 30 hertz. Here you can see. So with the crossover was, I believe, 110 or 100 hertz something, but very, very steep, like 48 dB, just to remove all of this and try not to touch this area because I wanted to follow the target. So it was a very, very high for a subwoofer and very steep crossover. So this is after the crossover, and then after EQ, just remove that peak, a little boost in this area, maybe like 3 dB, very wide, and the whole response was this, which is very, very nice. And let me put all of the targets and everything. This was the final EQ work. So I had to increase the gain on the tweeters a little bit just to bring them up a tiny bit, but everything is following, everything is nice. After the time alignment, I can actually show you the time alignment for this. So subwoofer, left bass and right bass ended up something like this. So you can see that they are in time. A slightly out of phase below like 70, but it's fine. They did some nice. This would need either the mid basses or the subwoofer would need an all pass filter for better summing, and I will probably play with that. And you can see that which one is it? The right bass, the passenger, the driver side mid bass has this extra phase wrap, and this is that cancellation at 150 hertz that you saw in the measurements as well. So this would need an all pass filter as well, but from 70 all the way up to like 120 in the crossover region, yeah, they overlap quite nicely. Then mid left, mid right. Oh yeah, and I have, yeah, so one measurement is messed up because I think I measured one mid bass instead of the mid range. So yeah, don't look at this. One of the mid ranges is the wrong measurement. And just the tweeters, where is it? Right tweeter, like that. Again, everything starts at kind of 0. They are kind of in phase, although something is happening here, but it's fine. So after the time alignment, the whole response was this. You can see tweeters, they don't sum that nice in the very, very top end, but it's probably just losing energy. Everything else sums nice. There's a little dip in here, but it's fine. Mid bass sum nice, however, there's a hole here. But the main thing, the integration, the summing between mid bass and subwoofer is very nice. I have very, very nice summation. So let me just clear everything and show you this. So this was the whole response. So what I did in this area, I put an all pass filter. So we were kind of pressed on time. It was not enough time. So again, I had to just rush it. And I just eyeballed an all pass filter just to try it a few different values, and I ended up something with this. So it negated this cancellation, but there's a cancellation here. So next time when he comes, I'm just going to do proper measurements, phase measurements, and I'm going to determine the correct all pass filter to properly phase mat. But this is just a quick fix, eyeballed, and it's kind of not bad. I reduced the level a tiny bit for the mid ranges, the whole mid ranges. I pulled them a little bit down, and I pulled the tweeters a little bit up to increase the level, and everything ended up like this. If I will overlay a house curve and apply some smoothing just for you to see, like that, we can see that it's falling like up to 10k. There's a roll off. This could be pushed a bit more. Probably I'm gonna push it if the owner will want. And there's a slightly more energy here than the target. So now how it sounds like it has a bit more in the lower mid range, where you have like male vocals or like kick drums and stuff. So like for metal, it's kind of not bad. It sounds good. But then when you have this level here, it kind of misses level here as well, and maybe would need more sub level. So for now, I said for the owner, just listen to it, look how it sounds, and in a couple of weeks when you're gonna come, we're gonna make adjustments based on the listening preference, because this tune itself, it's kind of rushed. I did it probably in an hour and a half. Which probably was the fastest tune that I've ever done. But the EQ work is fine. The main thing is just to double check the phase issues that we have here with the mid basses, with the all pass filter. And just to play with the levels of, probably we just need to reduce the level of the mid bass a little bit, because where is it? Right bass. Yeah, so basically this is just too much level on the mid bass. So I just need to pull them down a little bit, probably turn down the gain on the amplifier, and this will go down with no issues. No need to work with EQ. And again, just play with this cancellation. But overall, it sounds very, very nice. It has a lot of bass, a little bit maybe too much in the lower mid-range, but it sounds good. It doesn't sound bad at all. So final adjustments will be in a couple of weeks, but this is the whole tuning session, and the results were very, very nice. So the issues, kind of the main issues, is the tweeters. They're nice. There's no problem with the tweeters. They play very nice. The main issue is with the left mid-range, is where you have this one, and I did boost it, and it doesn't sound harsh. It sounds kind of okay, but there is an acoustical issue here. And then the other issue is with the mid bass in the doors. But yeah, you cannot do anything about it. Doors are doors, and I doubt that he's gonna go into kicks. So for now, he's gonna live with this. The doors a little bit rattle, but it's fine. The subwoofer plays very nice, and it doesn't. Does it need a front subwoofer or not? The system would benefit from a front subwoofer just to reduce the level of the mid bass and the rattling doors. So the doors would rattle a bit less. However, it wouldn't add, well, yeah, it would change the mid bass kick feel in the system. But since it's not like super high-end competition system, it's kind of fine for daily. It's more than enough, and it's plenty enough. Overall volume is plenty enough. It doesn't feel like anything is struggling. The mid basses don't struggle, mid ranges don't struggle, tweeters are fine, subwoofer is fine as well. Just for the subwoofer, I will need to put an infrasonic just to reduce this level at the very bottom, because it's pointless to have it there. When it bottoms out below 30, it doesn't sound that nice anyway. Maybe if he is gonna upgrade the subwoofer for something better or nicer, maybe we're gonna extend that bottom end. But in general, I'm very, very happy how it sounds like. I'm very happy with the results. This will need some little polishing, but 98% of the work is done. So this was RTA evaluation of the Honda Jazz upgrade project. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.